Back with you on Hitting Hard on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Jon Chuckery with you, and we're asking you to head over to youtube.com. Put Locked On Sports Atlanta into the browser. Search us out. Leave us a comment. Subscribe to the channel. Give us your thoughts about what we are talking about here today. And, of course, follow me on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. Last night, the Eastern Conference Finals got underway, Miami and the Celtics. And we're not going to talk about the game, but there was something that stood out. So now tonight, the Western Conference Finals gets going. So you've got the Eastern Conference Finals with Stephen A. Smith, Jalen Rose, and Mike Greenberg. Okay. Tonight, TNT Western Conference Finals. I've got Ernie, I've got Shaq, I've got Kenny, and I've got Charles. ESPN, Stephen A., Greenberg, Rose. TNT, Ernie, Shaq, Charles, Kenny. One of these is not like the other. Can I tell you that the difference in the coverage, and I don't know where there's another example of this, whether NFL, Major League Baseball, hockey, college football, I don't know that there's a bigger disparity between two networks putting on the same product and having either the single most dreadful to watch pre, post, and halftime show or pure gold. I'm listening last night just to halftime and some stuff in between commercial breaks and stuff on my radio show, and that show is awful. Stephen A., Jalen Rose, and Greenberg. First off, Greenberg is there because he's been so bad at everything else that they've asked him to do that they've paid him so much money that they literally have to just find stuff for him to do. So he was on that show to get started, that Get Woke. That's the biggest piece. Michelle Beadle, Greenberg, and Jalen Rose. That was the biggest piece of garbage, trash train wreck of a show laying on top of a plane that got crashed into the ground that I've ever seen in my entire life. It's awful. It's dreadful. It makes my skin crawl thinking about it. I wouldn't watch that show if it was in my cul-de-sac and they broadcasted there and paid me fees and rights and gave me half of Greenberg's salary. I still wouldn't watch that show. And then he wanted to get away from Mike Golick and do another radio show and blah, blah. And that failed miserably. So they gave him all these millions of dollars of money to do this stuff that they had all these projects for Greenberg. He failed in them all. So now they don't want to get rid of him. They got to pay him. So let's go stick him on the NFL draft. Now we've got him on NBA coverage. And it's awful. Awful. It's dreadful to watch those guys. And guess what I'm going to get tonight? I'm going to get on the Western Conference Finals, far and away, the best pre-post halftime show that's ever been done in the history of organized sports. You can't be better than Shaq, Kenny, Ernie, and Charles. And those guys are money. They're always entertaining. They inform. They're not afraid to go after one another because they were all high-level players. And Ernie, for God's sakes, Ernie is the master at, you talk about the ultimate point guard, he's the master of keeping that show just enough on the rails to get it going in the direction that it wants. He's the best. He's an amazing studio host. You couldn't put a better guy in there. As great as those other three guys are, if you put somebody like Greenberg in the middle of it, there'd be people putting a gun to their head, loaded gun to their head, wanting to kill themselves listening to him. You have to have the right mix of all of it. And I don't know. I mean, without coming off the top of my head of, the difference between ESPN, Fox, and whatever else is Major League Baseball, or the difference between Fox and CBS and ESPN NFL coverage. I don't know that there's enough of a difference between those two. But, brother, the gap that's between the ESPN dregs of the universe product that they put out there for what they call a pre, post, and halftime show, and what those guys at TNT put on, it doesn't even feel like the same sport is being covered. So I'm very much looking, as much as I'm looking forward to the games themselves, because I think they're two very good and very intriguing series. And last night was a very intriguing Western or Eastern Conference Finals. Miami wins back in, Boston controlled that game early, couldn't miss a shot. Miami clamped down. They made a big run, got a big lead. Then Boston got back. It was back and forth. And then Miami finally took control and won that thing. And this series starting tonight, Luka versus Steph. And here's these guys. And we got this and that going on, and the Mavericks are now the hot franchise, and are the Warriors back to championship? All the great storylines. But I know that when I watch, and I promise you, I'm going to do everything to watch as much of the pre, half, and post game show of that Western Conference Finals, because it's going to be pure gold. It's going to give me the information I need. Those guys are going to entertain the ever-living daylights out of me. And I know Ernie's going to be the best that there is to navigate the waters through all of that. So, again, I understand that ESPN is never going to just arbitrarily create a show that's as good. And, again, that TNT broadcast is the best that's ever come along. I've said the only two studio shows that I think are truly great was the TNT broadcast, and then the old NFL primetime Sunday night on ESPN, when it was just Chris Berman and Tom Jackson. Not this cavalcade of all these different people popping in and out and on the panel and this, that. Nope. It was 7 to 9 on Sunday before there was Sunday night football. There was no other game to be played until Monday night, so you could recap all the games that were played. You'd have everything caught up for the week other than the Monday night game coming up. And it was just Berman and Tom Jackson breaking it down and having fun. That's when Berman was halfway tolerable, I guess maybe is the best way to describe it. But that to me was the best, show ESPN has ever done. But these two programs covering the exact same sport, I mean, brother, like it is night and day. One is complete amateur hour, and the other is just as good as it gets. And look, those guys all played, like I said, they're all high level guys. Shaq is obviously a champion. Kenny's a champion. Barkley's one of the great players in the history of the league. And I saw a report recently that said that the one guy on broadcasts that people actually tune in to watch is Charles Barkley. And I can understand why. He's a bigger than life personality who I've talked to Charles multiples of times. I don't want to say he doesn't care, but he doesn't care what people think. He doesn't do social media. He doesn't get mixed up in all that kind of stuff. They know what their roles are on there. That ESPN thing with Greenberg and Stephen A. and Jalen Rose, like that, if that's all the better that the 4-letter network can come up with to come up with their NBA coverage, they should sell the rights to TNT and just let TNT broadcast all the games, because it's not even comparable between those two things. It's not even watchable what they're putting on ESPN. So again, I'll say really quickly, I think the Celtics still win the series in 7 games. I'm going to take Golden State in 6 games in the Western Conference Finals, but that all gets cranked up tonight, and won't be long before we're into the NBA offseason, so we can really talk about what's got to go on with the Atlanta Hawks and everything. All right. We thank you so much for being a part of the show today. Thanks for making Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery your first listen. Don't forget, make your second listen A to Z with Mark Zinno. He is back and doing a podcast here as part of our Locked On Sports Atlanta network. Check out his show daily, Monday through Friday. It's free and available on YouTube, just like this show, and it's free on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Check it out, A to Z with Mark Zinno. We will be back tomorrow. Follow me on my Twitter page at JMCH316. It's been Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta.